Hello and welcome to the webinar exclusively for BCA membership only on small and medium-sized construction businesses, the Ohs Due Diligence Challenges, and Wcv Excellence Rebates available. Today we have two speakers who are going to be talking about different topics and trying to provide lots of insights based on their experience and try and guide you on different matters and educate you. So first of all, let me start by thanking Allison and Bryony for all your efforts. Without your efforts and support, this webinar wouldn't have been possible. And thank you very much to all the lovely membership we have watched that we are meeting virtually today. Rest assured, in 2022, we're going to get back to the old normal days of physical seminars very soon. See you face to face. Without any further delay, let me move on to the agenda for today. And a quick housekeeping rule before we get into the agenda. There is a Q&A box that you see right on top of your screen or at the bottom of your screen. So if you have any questions, please feel free to type in your question. You have an ISO lead auditor and a core external auditor of the IHSA here today. So it's a correct person to ask questions about due diligence. And this webinar is being recorded and will be provided to your to all the attendees and the BCA membership to the BCA marketing pipeline. So today we have we start off with Ohs Due Diligence Challenges for construction SMEs. And then we move on to why we are here today and to set the context. And we're going to discuss the roles and responsibility of key workplace parties, which is a very key aspect of due diligence. And then we're going to take you over what could be a sustainable OHS program solution for SMEs, such as you on the call today, and how investing in your OHS program via the Wcv Excellence Program can benefit you. So let us now move over to the first piece of the presentation for today. It's going to be done by John Turner. John Turner is the Director of Business Development for Ohs Consulting Services, Inc. He has over 20 years of experience as an executive leader working with Fortune 500 companies. And before joining 4S 3 years ago as a Director of New Business Development, John's business acumen and leadership experience has always been helping businesses such as you in adding value and improving your business operations through insights. John, all yours.
Thanks, Adi. And I want to say thanks again to Allison and the BCA for allowing for us to conduct this webinar this morning, and to all of you taking your time out of your busy day. And I appreciate that. You know, as we all know, in the last 18 months, the small, medium-sized business market has been impacted in several different ways. You know, some are thriving through new business opportunities and some trying to retain clients. And unfortunately, some businesses are experiencing declined revenue and looking for new ways to bounce back. Regardless of the SMEs are doing through the new normal, they all face their challenges, especially when it comes to creating a health and safety management system. Now, I want to go through here some challenges you may relate to. Dedicated resource. This is the most common one. In a lot of cases, as you can relate to, small, medium-sized businesses can't afford to add a dedicated health and safety resource. So what happens? The responsibilities are assigned to HR, office manager, a manager, or even a supervisor. And basically, they have full bandwidth capacity, so which leads to the next challenge, lack of time. Just like anything, if you don't allocate enough time and commitment, you'll create gaps and risks to your business, especially when it comes to health and safety. If you don't have a compliant health and safety management system, it's like driving a car without car insurance. The consequence for an SME can be very costly in so many ways. Facing a $100,000 fine for not proving due diligence can be devastating to a small business. For the owners on this webinar, $100,000 net dollars is like losing a $1.2 million top line revenue client. Another challenge is lack of knowledge for creating a health and safety management system. It can be very challenging and overwhelming if someone doesn't have a health and safety certification or any previous experience to be responsible for creating a health and safety management system and to get the company in full compliance. During this webinar, Sobi is going to be sharing some insights and provide suggestions about workplace hazard assessment, policies and procedures, workplace inspections and investigations, and employee orientation and training. For those on this webinar, and if you're a company that has gaps in your health and safety program, and you're non-compliant, and you face resource challenges, later on this webinar at a high level, I'll go through our unique SME support program to assist with those challenges and to maximize your rebate with the Wcv Excellence Program. Addie, next slide.
Yeah, sorry.
This slide is the reason why WSIB, with the collaboration with the CPO, created the Excellence Program. Fatalities and critical injuries in a workplace do happen in all business sectors. If this happens in your workplace, you want to be prepared to look for the spouse in the eye and say that you did everything possible to avoid this terrible incident. Look at the WSIB claims allowed and lost time. This directly impacts your bottom line, especially for SMEs, as you rely on each employee to be in your workplace to run your business effectively. You can't afford to leave, you can't afford these claims and lost time. Safety should be proactive, not reactive. Having a health and safety management system in your workplace will allow you to be proactive. You control all incidents, but as an employer, the one thing you can't control is proving due diligence if something happens. That's why having a health and safety management system in your workplace is so critical. Okay, Addie, back to you.
Thank you very much, John. And before we move over to the next speaker, Sobi Raghunathan, what I suggest is we have a quick poll that we wanted to do, and it's going to take you 30 or 40 seconds. And the reason for the poll is to understand the audience better so that Sobi, when she presents, she can calibrate her message accordingly. So can I request my Zoom admin team to quickly run the poll, please? And just take 30 seconds. It will be 3 basic questions about your health and safety program. So that will help us actually calibrate the message moving forward. So here we go. So question number 1, what is the biggest challenge with your OHS program? John was talking about challenges. So small and medium-sized businesses, everything that you do matters. Each decision that you take matters. What are your challenges? Is it not having a dedicated resource or lack of time or health and safety competencies or all of the above? And did you audit your health and safety program in the last 12 to 18 months? Yes or a no? And how do you manage your health and safety document and record control? Very huge piece in due diligence. Do you do it digitally or do you do it manually? So I'm giving you about 30, 40 seconds to quickly go through this and let us see what the answers will be. We'll have the poll open to everyone, the results. While you're punching in your answers, please ensure that you the whole idea of this webinar is to educate you and to learn from you. If you have any questions regarding due diligence, regarding any challenges you're facing, we have speakers on this call. You can ask questions. So can I request my Zoom admin team to quickly give us the results of the poll so that we can move over? Wow. So what is the biggest challenge with your OHS program? John, to your point, lack of time to manage your program seems to rule the roost, 60%, and not having dedicated health and safety resources, about 20%. And then competencies. I'm so glad to see people are very aware of appointing people who are competent, and all of the above, 20%. So the second question was, how many of you audited your program for 12 to 18 months? Sobi will be very happy to see this number. About 80% of them have said yes, which is excellent, and it serves as a good due diligence document if you get it done through a third party. And how are you managing your health and safety document and record control? This 60% doing it manually and 40% doing it digitally. Thank you so much for participating in this poll. So this gives us a very good idea of how to take this presentation forward and how to calibrate our message. So let's move on to the next presenter for today. Her name is Sobi Raghunathan. Sobi is the IHSA External Core Auditor, and she's a Vice President of Operations Strategy and Partnerships for Forest Consulting Services, Inc. And she's also the ISO 45001 Lead Auditor. So Sobi has been supporting diverse Canadian businesses for over 20 years, close to 22 plus years, in implementing sustainable OHS programs. And she's part of the League of Champions managed by the Ontario General Contractors Association. And she's been constantly promoting safety leadership and leveraging technology to help businesses. And she sits on the board of governors for the Ryerson University. Without any further delay, let me move this over to Sobi Raghunathan, who'll be talking about setting the context of why we are here today and why due diligence. Sobi, over to you. Sobi, you're on mute.
Thank you so much, Eddie, and Valley Construction Association. It is a great pleasure to meet all of you virtually, and we all are looking for in-person meetings because I believe these seminars, especially the due diligence seminar, has much more impact when we meet in person, and we do tend to do a lot of group exercise as well to get you to understand some of your legal obligations. So I'm waiting for that day to happen soon in the near future, as we are slowly returning back to some level of normalcy with COVID as almost a lifestyle that we are getting used to. We do need to have protocols in place, but we do need to be cautious, but we do need to get back to some level of normalcy. So thank you for joining us today. This is one of my favorite topics, due diligence, and especially talking to business owners and senior managers. I feel that my vision and mission for the health and safety industry can be fulfilled by taking this message across, because this is the fundamental for you to build a good safety management system. Once you understand Ohs due diligence and why you do what you do and how do you go about maintaining the program, rest of the pieces of the puzzle will take place in where it's supposed to belong. So that being said, why are we here today? Why due diligence? Why Ohs due diligence? I mean, we understand financial due diligence, but Ohs due diligence. Just to go back in history to kind of give you a little bit of a context. The Ontario Health and Safety Act, if you are a provincially regulated organization, you fall under the Occupational Health and Safety Act and regulations. Construction has its own set of regulations. Industrial establishments have its own set of regulations. So if you're in the service sector, manufacturing, you all fall under the industrial regulation establishments. And then there's mining and so on and so forth. The act is same for the province, despite the different sectors. So the Occupational Health and Safety Act pretty much gives you the guiding principles, the expectations, the rules and regulations of what you need to do to manage health and safety at your organization. At the same time, if you are a federally regulated employer, then you fall under the Canada Labour Code Part 2. It is similar to the Occupational Health and Safety Act. It is a little bit of a watered down version of it, but that's for federal regulations such as the airports, the banks, where they are providing services, the telecommunications, the transportations that happens between the provinces. That being said, in 2004, Canadian Health and Safety, Canadian Criminal Code amended the Canadian Criminal Code to include workplace negligence. The Westray mine disaster that took place made a huge impact to the health and safety field, and the due diligence and the liabilities and the ownership of the health and safety program. So over and above the Occupational Health and Safety Act or the Canada Labour Code, if you cannot prove due diligence for workplace health and safety, you can be criminally charged under the Criminal Code of Canada. So that's something I really want you to really understand and key takeaways for you. One of the things I always say when I'm doing this presentation is in the US, IRS has enormous amount of power. You know, you have some taxation issues, IRS can come and give you a hard time, and they can actually throw you in jail for that. In Canada, it is not as bad as the US. They don't throw you in jail, they will give you audits and need to comply to it and all that. But for health and safety violations, you can be thrown into jail. So I want you to really understand that, and you can be criminally charged for health and safety negligence. Those of you who are senior managers and business owners, this is something that you really need to look at it and step back and say, what do you need to do to create a sustainable health and safety program and a culture, safety culture for your organization? I urge each and every one of you to visit the Ministry of Labor website and in-court cases. The in-court cases tells you the organizations that are being charged on a regular basis and for what reasons they are being charged, under what section. So we have actually picked 3 cases that may be relevant to this particular group. Addie is going to be sending the links for those cases. I really want you to take the time to read through those cases to understand what went wrong and under what sections they have been charged, and then reflect back in your into your organization to see, is there something that you could do? Do you have these exposures, and what can you do to prevent similar type of incidents like this at your organizations? And what do you need to do to establish due diligence? That's the whole purpose of these cases. The first case is workers' injury from a construction site fall resulted in $60,000. Whatever the fines that you see here, it's the fine imposed to the organization or the individual. There's always a 25% victim surcharge that's applied over and above this fine. So if it's $60,000, they would have ended up paying $75,000 in fines. And this is apart from all the legal costs and downtime issues and everything else that's related to an organization. When by the time you're done, you're looking at least a few $100,000 an injury would have cost you. The second case is death of a supervisor resulted in $200,000 fine for a Hamilton construction company. So do take the time to read through these cases. The last one is a London company. Supervisor was fined and also a total fine of $97,000 following 2 incidents. So in this case, the supervisor was fined and the organization was fined. And they had 2 cases, and this one is a very interesting one because they are actually going after 2 cases that happened literally within 2 months apart for various different situations, but they did charge the client under the overall umbrella of the organization for both of the cases. And one of them, they actually went back, and the Ministry of Labor was there at the site, gave a whole pile of work orders to fix machinery with safeguarding them properly. The incident, and the company did comply to it by taking all the actions for the orders. But the orders were given for all the machinery that was inside the organization. And there was a couple of pieces of machinery that was outside. And when the worker was using that particular piece of machinery, they got critically injured. So the Ministry of Labor actually went back and actually gave them a fine because, again, don't be so narrow focused. Don't put blinders on and just say, I'm focusing on the orders that's being given to me. When orders are given, look at it and say, have I complied to all if certain piece of machineries were identified, look at the others that have not been identified and visit them to see, are they properly guarded? If not, what kind of actions do you need to take? That is due diligence. So with that note, we will move on to our main discussion. So please do take the time to read through those 3 simple cases that will give you a lot of insight as to, why they were fined and what you can do to establish due diligence. Due diligence, it's all about, are you able to prove due diligence? I mean, you can say many things about what you have in place And those of you who answered, I believe 4 out of 5 has answered, you have done some sort of a compliance review of your health and safety program. And the question that I will ask is, who did the compliance review for you? Because this is a very critical question. If you printed out a checklist and you went through it on your own, have you factored, because I always advise all of our clients and all the members who participants who come for my seminars, when you are auditing your own program, bias always gets in the way. You may think you're doing everything, but that may not be the case. And it is also your competency. Do you have the knowledge and the experience and the training as a competent auditor? So it is definitely money well spent to qualify and get a competent auditor to audit your program. Again, these are part of your operational cost. Do factor this in, include this as part of your budget. Do invest the time and the resources to get a safety compliance review. The safety compliance review is a great tool for due diligence, because whatever that gets identified from an unbiased party with the proper competency, you could literally take that and create your continuous improvement plan, your roadmap for actually identifying what you need to fix, and then show it have to be, again, within reasonable period of time. Don't do the audit and stretch out fixing all this out for 2 years or 3 years. It has to be reasonable time period. So if you say, I got the audit and I'm going to take action in terms of making all the continuous improvement plan or revamping my program within a year or 18 months and define clear responsibility, who's going to be doing it, who's going to be supporting you with this, then those are great due diligence document for you. Please take this very serious message when it comes to compliance audits and reviews that are done. Key takeaway, make sure it's done by a competent person and make sure bias does not get in the way of you evaluating your program. Couple of things to remember when we talk about OHS mandatory compliance for small, medium-sized organizations. Key takeaways are, do you have employees that are regularly employed? So that's 5 or more employees regularly employed. If you have 5 or more employees regularly employed, which includes your part-time support, then you do need to have a detailed health and safety program in place. What do we mean by health and safety program? I always tell all of our clients and participants in seminars like this, health and safety program is referring to safety management system. Safety management system consists of you identifying hazards and exposures and risk associated with your particular type of operation. Based on that, you create your policies, procedures, your health and safety manual, safe work instructions. Then you provide the necessary training and the understanding so that your employees and your supervisors and managers understand what is their key responsibilities to maintain a safe and healthy work environment while they're performing their task. And then you evaluate the effectiveness of the program and look for continuous improvement. That is a health and safety management system as a whole. So when people say they have a health and safety program, ask yourself the question, have you done a detailed hazard assessment to identify all the processes in your organization? And have you created a safety manual based on that? There are many times, 9 out of 10 times when I get involved in overseeing projects or audits of SMEs, we get to see nice, thick health and safety manuals. Health and safety manuals are dime a dozen. You could download it, you could pay a couple of $1,000 to a company and get a health and safety manual created for you. Is that good enough for you? The answer is no. If the health and safety manual is created without really understanding hazards and exposures associated with your business, the processes that you do, then those manual is not reflective of your processes. So please consider that and revisit that, because that is definitely an area of opportunity for improvement in many SMEs. If you have 20 or more employees regularly employed, you need to have a joint health and safety committee. The joint health and safety committee must consist a minimum of 2 people, one being a non-managerial or supervisory worker, and the other being a supervisor or a manager or a senior manager of the organization. These 2 minimum members have to be certified in part 1 and part 2 of the Joint Health and Safety Committee training program. Joint Health and Safety Committee training is regulated just like working at heights by the Ministry of Labor. Only approved training providers can provide training and certificates for Joint Health and Safety Committee. There are many options for doing Joint Health and Safety Committee training. And I know at Forus, we have explored many different options, including online. My advice to employers who have a decent size of workforce, if you can invest the resource to actually do a joint health and safety committee training for more than just 2 people, and have more than just 2 people in your joint health and safety committee, because when you have more people, you're going to get more support to manage your health and safety program. Health and safety coordinators, if you can afford it, great, but you can divide up the responsibility. Health and safety resource, whether it's a coordinator, a trainer, a manager, they are resources for you. They are not the ones who should be doing the day-to-day stuff of maintaining the health and safety program. It should be done by the middle management. So please do understand that, because they cannot transfer that responsibility to health and safety professionals or coordinators or managers at the organization. The responsibility still resides with supervisors and managers, the middle managers, who do need to sustain the program. If you have 5 or more employees, but less than 20, you do need to identify a person as a health and safety rep and provide some level of training. My recommendation is, today, there's no health and safety training that's certified for safety rep. There are a couple of different options available. I highly recommend and advise if you can encourage them to take Joint Health and Safety Committee certification training, which will give them the foundation, the understanding, and the basis to be an effective safety rep. And the third major point is mandatory training courses. There are 4 mandatory training that is required from every worker in Ontario. That is your VMS 2015, employee awareness training if you are a worker or an employee, or it could be a supervisory awareness training for a manager or a supervisor or a senior manager. Violence and harassment, again, in a form of a training is required, and the Occupational Health and Safety Act does not specify what type of training, but they say employees have to be trained. So our recommendation is make it a standard training. There are many different solutions available for this training, and one of the easiest way to show compliance to this mandatory training is e-learning. So if you can subscribe to an online platform for e-learning, it will make your life very easy to show compliance. The minute you hire a new person, you offer the mandatory training, and you do need to offer refresher training for your employees on an ongoing basis. Now let's look at some of the key fundamental requirements for sustaining your health and safety program. First is to establish and then to sustain so that you can prove due diligence. Hazard assessment, policies and procedures. Hazard assessment is the foundational piece for your organization, and it has to be very specific to your organization. The question that I ask each and every one of you who have logged in today is, do you have a hazard assessment for all the tasks that you perform in your line of services to your clients? This includes the administrative tasks or not routine tasks that you may have to perform. Make sure to have a detailed hazard assessment and do review these hazard assessments when accidents and incidents happen to understand what they were doing at the time of accident or the incident, to see if there are certain steps or certain risk factors or controls that was missed. And if it was missed, go back and amend and re-communicate those tasks, the hazard assessments to your employees. Hazard assessment is a living and breathing document. It does take quite a bit of time to do it right and do it properly. Those are definitely services I would highly recommend. If you don't have experts who can do that within your own team, do get the right resources, outside resources, consultants to support you with that. Again, it have to be detailed and they have to identify all the controls, how they are defining the controls using the hierarchy of control, and then focusing on how you're going to maintain it, provide safe work environment for your employees. So hazard assessment, every time when you bring in a new piece of equipment or change your process, you do need to revisit your hazards, the hazard assessments, and update those. And then you need to re-communicate that to your employees. Do you have specific policies and procedures? Policies and procedures must be developed, as I mentioned previously, after identifying your hazards and exposures. And they should be reflecting how you're going to provide safe work environment for your employees. And one of the key things to remember when you're writing your policies is to ensure that you are not just complying the minimum standards based on the Occupational Health and Safety Act. What Occupational Health and Safety Act tells you is the bare minimum standard. For due diligence purposes, always do something a little bit more. Always focus on exceeding the minimum standards. Do you have proof of staff reviewing your procedures, safe work instructions? One of the cases, when you read through the cases, they do identify procedures did exist, but the procedures wasn't reflective of the task that was being performed. And the employees did not read and acknowledge the procedures. These are key foundational fundamental pieces for due diligence. The safe work instructions procedure, this is going back to you having a standard manual board or developed. You do need to revisit that. It needs to go back to your hazards, make sure those hazards are identified, and you do have safe work instructions that are specific for your organizations, and it needs to be communicated to your staff. And as we move on, I will talk about some of the tools and tips. You know, having online management system and choosing the right online management system that is going to allow you to actually stay on top of managing your health and safety program and keeping it alive is crucial. It will save enormous amount of pain and agony and time and resources if you choose the right safety management system. There are many online systems available. Choose the right one that's going to also identify, you know, from hazard assessment. You have policies and procedures. The policies and procedures should be identified and to the appropriate staff who will be performing those tasks, and then you do hold them accountable by, you know, running some reports on completion or review of these hazards that is being assigned to them, the safe work instructions, training, all that. If you can maintain some level of system like that that looks at the various different components of your safety management system, then you are keeping your program alive. And the last bit is make sure that your program is audited. I think I stressed enough on doing an audit. If you have an SME, my recommendation is every 12 months to 18 months, audit your program. And the program, the audit, or you could call it gap analysis, safety compliance review, it's the same thing. That will actually tell you where you are, how you are maintaining your program. Workplace inspections and investigations. Inspections are a proactive means to identify hazards become an incident or accident. Accident investigation is a reactive tool to identify possible opportunities and preventive measures to focus on so that you could prevent a similar type of incident from happening again. Both are crucial. You do need to define a process for doing inspections. In the Occupational Health and Safety Act, it clearly defines if you have a large organization, parts of your organizations have to be inspected monthly. That pertains to large organizations. If you have a manageable size organization, make sure monthly inspections are happening and there are different people who are doing the monthly inspections. If you allow the same person to do the monthly inspection month after a month, complacency is going to set in. So these are things that you do need to watch out for. Do have document and track your corrective actions. Again, if you have some level of a safety management system, in this day and age, online systems are easier way and it definitely supports with your resource management. It can be assigned to the appropriate people who will be doing the inspections, and when they do the inspection, they go through the checklist and they identify corrective actions, and it can go to another department who's going to fix the issue, and then corrective actions can be actually printed out saying what is outstanding, what needs to be followed up. As external auditor, when I go into organizations, I am looking for corrective actions that are being open, and inspections that are being the same type of things that continuously being identified. That helps me a little bit about the organization's culture and the importance they are giving to actually identify and fix what needs action. And then when you're identifying corrective actions, you do need to categorize them as immediate. If it has the potential to immediately endanger somebody, critical accident, it needs to be fixed immediately. If it has a potential for first aid, you may have some time to fix it, but it needs to be fixed within a reasonable period of time. So you do need to categorize them, and the people who are doing the inspection should have some level of training to understand the various different types of hazards and exposures. That's why I highly recommend providing more people with the knowledge and the training by providing them Joint Health and Safety Committee training for more people, and then on an ongoing basis provide additional training like basics of supervision or due diligence that continuously keep reminding the middle management team and the resources who are overseeing your health and safety program. Accidents and incidents do need to be investigated. You do need to have a detailed policy and a procedure for it, and you do need to ensure that your employees who would be performing accident investigation are trained. Those of you who have Joint Health and Safety Committee needs to ensure that one of the worker member from the Joint Health and Safety Committee supports the responsible manager or supervisor in conducting the accident investigation. So additional training is highly, highly recommended. And when you are doing accident investigation, do focus on root cause analysis and preventive measures. Once you identify the root cause analysis and preventive measures, ensure that it is communicated to the affected staff so that they understand and they can follow the preventive measures going forward. Kind reminder, our supervisors and Joint Health and Safety Committee members train to investigate. I think I stressed enough on investigation training. Investigation training can be performed as a separate standalone training as part of Joint Health and Safety Committee, certification training, basics of supervision. So there's many different means to offer accident investigation training. I know as part of some of the services that we offer at Forest Consulting, we do have e-learning for accident investigation, workplace inspection that gives the basics to the people who are performing it. So there are many different means to provide this training. So do explore various different options. Focusing on employee orientation and training. How effectively do you conduct and document training? When we talk about training, it is a very broad spectrum because there are many different trainings you do need to provide. For mandatory training, over and above the mandatory training, as an employer and supervisors and managers, you are ultimately responsible for providing hazard-specific training. Some of these hazard-specific training are regulated. For example, if they are going to be working at heights, then they do need working at heights training. If you're in the construction industry, you definitely need to have working at heights training that is provided by a ministry-approved training provider. If you're operating scissor lift or forklift, then you do need additional training, and each of these training do have an expiry date. Those training that do not have an expiry date, always make sure that you do some sort of a reminder or a refresher at the scheduled time. You need to have a training matrix. Again, if you do your hazard assessment properly, once your assessment is done properly, it should give you the safe work instruction by the task that they perform. They should tell you what kind of training they need by the task they perform. It should identify the personal protective equipment they need to wear for doing certain types of tasks. So hazard assessment is the backbone of your health and safety management system. Once it's done properly, then it can actually tell you what you need to do. Again, if you have the right safety management system, if it's designed in such a way from hazard management, hazard assessment, it actually automatically configures and helps you manage your safety management system by assigning the necessary training for the certain job functions. Those are easier way for you to stay in compliance and maintain compliance and keep your health and safety program alive. Ensure to provide new hire orientation training. There should be a policy or procedure identifying what you are going to cover in the new hire orientation. So you would make sure the mandatory trainings are given, as well as hands-on information on their particular task, their particular hazards, and how to do their job safely. This is why I keep on reiterating the proper management system, online management system, can support you with some of this. Or if you have a paper-based process, but you do need to make sure you are giving all the documents, you are identifying. I was talking to a client, a potential client yesterday, and they mentioned they have about 90 staff. And they mentioned that every new hire gets about a 3-inch thick binder about their health and safety program. And they have to go through that. So the question I asked them is, how can you ensure that they have read all the policies and procedures that are specific to them, and that you can actually prove due diligence that they have acknowledged it and they have understood it? You could give a manual, but is that enough for you to prove due diligence? One of the cases, go back to the case study, talks about, employees knowing there's policies and procedures in there, but they have never read it. They don't understand what is required of them to follow. So always keep that in the back of your mind in terms of how are you going to make sure your employees are understanding how to do their jobs safely. So orientation should enable you to be very specific with their hazards and exposures and understand how to do their jobs safely. Again, ensure to retrain and focus on job-specific hazard trainings as well. I think I stressed enough on acknowledging safe work policies and procedures. Do have some way of documented proof. It could be electronic form or it could be a sign off, but you do need to have some sort of a proof saying, for example, John Smith had 10 procedures that are specific to his particular job function, and he have acknowledged on each of these 10 policies and safe work instructions that's applicable for him, and here's the sign off for those documents. That level of detail is needed for due diligence. Is your management trained on health and safety responsibility? This is a crucial question because middle management and your senior management needs to have an overall understanding for health and safety duties and responsibilities. They need to understand their legal exposures and rights and responsibilities, and they also need to have some ongoing training. Ongoing training on health and safety responsibility is crucial and it is critical. I have seen many organizations who are doing this regularly have a good health and safety management system in place, and they have a good safety culture, and things are moving in the right direction from their process to their output, their performance, everything is, you see such a high elevation compared to the ones who are not doing it. To summarize health and safety responsibilities, you need to understand Section 25 in the Occupational Health and Safety Act, which reflects the employer's responsibility. When you read the 3 cases that we have identified, 2 of them do reflect back on appointing a competent person as a supervisor. What is the definition of a competent person? A competent person must have experience, training, and the knowledge to do the job safely. So, and the common thing that you would see in majority of the in-court cases and the companies that are being fined is 25(1)(h). Have you done everything reasonable under the circumstances? Due diligence is all about you proving that you have done everything that can be done reasonable under the circumstances. So always step back and ask yourself the question, have I done everything reasonable under the circumstances? If you cannot answer that question, then you do need to go in and start looking at what do you need to do. Ensure maintenance of the program, so you do understand that you do need to sustain and maintain the program. I have been in cases where health and safety program was implemented, they did get all the professional help, then, a year went by, 2 years went by, nothing has been done to keep up with the program. That's why literally use the word keeping your program alive, or if you notice all of our Ohs's vision and mission statements to our slogans, to our emails, we always say, be in compliance, stay in compliance, keeping your health and safety program alive. So that is a crucial piece, keeping your program alive. That means you do need to maintain your program on a day-to-day basis and sustain it. Cooperate with Joint Health and Safety Committee, ensure regulatory compliance. My advice is always aim for a little more than the regulatory compliance. Make the Ohs Act available for people, all your workers, Joint Health and Safety, and provide explanatory materials addition to what is required minimum. Under Section 27 in the Occupational Health and Safety Act, it talks about the supervisor's responsibility. So middle managers do need to understand they can be legally held liable under Section 27 in the Occupational Health and Safety Act. The supervisors or managers do need to understand the regulatory compliance, advise their employees on hazards and potential exposures in their line of work while they're performing the task or the process. They need to ensure employees are wearing the proper PPE. I have heard and be witnessed and be part of investigating accidents and critical injuries where employees were told, and there was policies and procedures, there were training records to wear the proper PPE, but they have a habit of not wearing the proper PPE. Safety glasses is a common one. Safety shoes is another common one. And if an accident happens and the supervisor or the manager knew that the employee had a habit of not following this rule, and if they did nothing to discipline the worker, to reinforce what they need to do on a day-to-day basis and what was expected of them to wear as PPE, the supervisor or manager can be held liable under the Occupational Health and Safety Act because they did not do everything reasonable to protect the worker. Written instructions should be provided, so employers' responsibility is to enable the health and safety program and create the health and safety program, but supervisors and managers needs to ensure they provide instructions and remind employees and workers to follow the program. Reasonable precaution, it's the blanket statement. Have you done everything reasonable to protect your employees? And disciplinary actions for non-conformities. The example I used with the PPE is an example of disciplinary actions that should have been taken place. And the last section is workers' responsibility. So every worker do need to follow the responsibilities under Section 28 of the Act. It's not just employers and supervisors. Workers do have responsibilities. There have been cases where the workers have been charged for negligence. So workers need to make sure that they know the workplace hazards and materials used, participate in making workplace safer, refuse any unsafe work. They do have the right to refuse unsafe work, and they do have the right to report hazards. Work safely with no risk, report unsafe conditions, wear the right PPE that's prescribed for them to wear, and ask employer for any further explanation if they are not sure about certain protocols. So these are the fundamental acts and regulation that you must understand for due diligence. And in summary, Ohs due diligence, it's not difficult to achieve. It is very possible. There are 5 things I want you to remember as key takeaways while you're looking at your program or reevaluating your program. Number 1 is, Eddie, can you bring on the slides, please? It is an ongoing process. It is not something that you do once and assume your program is in place. It is an ongoing process. Always ensure that you are staying in compliance. First, you need to be in compliance, and then you need to stay in compliance to keep your program alive. Number 2, do your safety compliance review, at least 12 to 18 months. Put it in the budget. Allocate funds for it. Get it done properly. That will help you build your continuous improvement plan and roadmap for improving your health and safety program. And these documents are great due diligence documents. Number 3, ensure your employees take the mandatory training as well as hazard-specific training. And you should be able to maintain some level of training matrix or have some online system to do this for you. Majority of these training that are awareness-based can be taken online. Some of the online management systems have a combination of LMS with, could speak for the ForSafe Comms system, which is owned by Ohs. It comes with over 80 odd courses, includes the mandatory training and hazard-specific training, along with tracking all your policies, procedures, hazard assessment, accident investigation, workplace inspections. So if you can find a system similar to that, or that, then you should be able to sustain your program with ease. Number 4 is get third-party Ohs experts to review your program. Make sure it is not a biased opinion. It is an unbiased opinion coming from a competent health and safety professional. There are many professionals out there. Choose the one that has the competency, because there are, as I said, there are many systems, many consultants, make sure the one that is competent and the solution that fits all the pieces of the puzzle to maintain would be the ultimate one. And the last point is track and maintain your health and safety program effectively. It needs to be tracked and maintained on an ongoing basis. Implement your program isn't enough. You need to sustain it. You should always be looking for sustainable solution as part of your continuous improvement plan. So I guess that's pretty much brings us to the last bit of the segment of the presentation, and I'll pass it over to you, Eddie.
Thank you very much, Sobi, for the explanation. And if you do what Sobi summarized there, you will be in compliance and stay in compliance. That's the whole objective of this webinar. And now let's move over to John Turner, who will be talking about, we've seen the due diligence angle that Sobi spoke about. Now, John will be talking about what could be a sustainable way of doing it and proving it. John, all over to you.
Thanks, Adi. Okay, so some of you may know about the Wcv Excellence Program, some of you may not. So very high level, what the Wcv Excellence Program is that there's 36 topics that you can earn and get rebate on 5 topics per year by showing evidence and proving that you have acknowledged all the 5 topics. So what happens is that this great program is in line with the Core 2020 and also the ISO 45001. What I mean by that is out of the 36 topics, there are 22 out of the 36 topics are in line with Core 2020 and ISO 45001. So if you're a contractor or owner that wants to be eventually Core certified or ISO certified, this is a great way to start off. Unless that for procurement purposes that you need to accelerate that certification, if you need to get Core 2020 because it's a detriment to your business or ISO, just so you know, we do have a Core ISO support program we're supporting over 95 contractors, construction companies from all sizes, from 5 employees all the way up to, ranking construction in Western, mechanical with numerous employees. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through our unique program for companies that don't want to be Core or ISO, but know that they're not compliant and they want to do what's right. When we went off about the challenges, dedicated resource or lack of time or competencies, there's a lot of small businesses that are in your shoes that can't afford a dedicated resource. So if you are a company on this call that has a dedicated health and safety professional that has 100% bandwidth on that this may not be for you. But this is for somebody that is an owner that's on the call or a worker that knows that you don't have a dedicated resource, a lack of time and non-compliant. This is perfect. So what we've done, and just to kind of give you some history with the Excellence Program, this was launched in January 2020. So all the safety groups in Ontario were gone. The only way that you can get a rebate from your WSEB premiums is through this Excellence Program. So they started off with I think there was about close to 55 providers out there, we being one of them. Now, there are only less than 25 to date right now. And the reason is because when this was developed, they didn't realize the safety companies and consultants as a provider didn't understand how much work was involved to work with the client to make sure that you got those 5 topics approved. And we are one of them as well. So we pivoted because at the end of the day, if you're working towards getting the Excellence Program approved and you're not getting the rebate, it doesn't make sense. So what we've done, we designed a support program, more hands-on. So we make sure that we can maximize your rebate at the same time, developing, improving your program with an online management system for that sustainability. So what this is a dedicated team that we have. So we will have a dedicated project manager assigned to you. Instead of you being in a group setting meeting with multiple different companies as a typical provider will provide. So this will be assigned to you. The great thing is that this is what Sobi mentioned before about the foundation to your whole health and safety programs, about the compliance review, hazard assessment to identify all your potential hazards and exposures, creating a task list, and then get granular with creating the safer practices and procedures that align with the controls of the Occupational Safety Act. If you're a construction industry, electrical contractor, or what have you, gets basically customized to those controls. So this is what we will do. We will be able to do that compliance review and do those hazard assessment, creating a task list, and writing the safe work procedures, safe work practices, and everything else. So we will do that for you, hands-on approach. Documentation for the Excellence Program, there's a lot of documentations that need it. We would be working with you for the require forms and all the different procedures and all the evidence that needs to be done within that program. And I'm going really high level here just based on time. So the rebates, how they work, if you're not familiar. So if you're a company that's paying over $7,000 a year in annual premiums, you're actually entitled to $5,000 back if you can actually be successful of showing success for those 5 topics throughout the year. Okay. If you're a company that's over 50,000 premiums, it's basically now you're in a window of 10% rebate. So if you're paying $100,000 versus $100,000 in premiums, you're entitled to $10,000 net back. So basically what it shows is $1,000 per minimum per topic. Now, if you're an owner on this call that, hey, I only pay $4,000 in annual premiums because I only have 8 employees or what have you, they will give you 75% of your overall WSMB premiums. So there is something in it for anybody, but if you're over the $1,000 threshold, this is tremendously helpful for you to justify the investment of getting into compliance and all that part of it. The evidence story and validation support, this is critical. Unless you're familiar or going through this process before, is daunting. So what we do is we work very closely with your main contact, and we will guide you through all the different topics and the evidence stories and hands-on approach to make sure that you're going to get that approved. And the best part of all, it comes with our online management system. So not only that you get a dedicated resource that's going to be a project manager assigned to you, that's going to do a compliance review at your workplace to identify all the hazards, exposures, and put all this SOPs and the procedures together, will be uploaded. As we're building it, it's going to be uploaded. We do the upload and the configuration on the ForSafeCom management system and assign all the training to all different employees that you have gaps on. And then that will manage the training with the notifications coming due for training if it's in class or e-learning. Okay. At the same time, for the onboarding your employees, you're going to be able to upload the safe work practices and the procedures where the employees can acknowledge it and read it, acknowledge it in a date stamp. So therefore you can prove due diligence. And so also the inspection. So if you're a contractor or a company that have daily activities for inspections or weekly or monthly, if it's in your industrial company, when you have a forklift or heavy equipment, this could be all done via phone, tablet, desktop, what have you. So that's the great thing. It takes all the documentation control, the trends analysis. So if you are looking at going into an accreditation at some point, this is the type of detail that the auditors want to see. The great news is if you're a company that, yeah, your main goal, your end goal would be accredited down the road, this is a perfect opportunity for you to create that culture and that behavior where you don't have to be 100% consistent to pass an audit. So this is a great thing for you guys to really look into if there's any interest. And then what I will do for you is that no obligation, where if you're interested and want to learn more about the details around this whole product that we're talking about in service, and to see a demonstration of the online management system, I'd be more than happy to send you some available virtual date options for me to be able to walk you through the details of the program and demonstrate the online management system. And let's just say you're an owner or a company on this webinar that, you know what, we're already going through core. We don't need this type of program, but we only have a manual process. We don't have an online management system. I'd be more than happy to establish an online management system demo. So at least you know what your options are out there. And if there's any interest, then we can send you some pricing. Great. No obligation, no pressure. But the thing is, you don't know what you don't know. And the whole thing is options are always good for businesses out there. And it's up to you to see if there's any value for you. So that's a very high level approach of this SME program that we developed. Now, this is the best part about it is every company is looking for a value differential. because there, you have another contractor that's in your area that you're competing with and what have you. The great thing about it is this excellence program, you get a digital badge right away that you can upload into your website. You can put it in your signature page. So for brand recognition, so if you're actually going to be showcasing that you're leading towards your accreditation, you're part of the excellence program. And what's great about it is if a company looks at safety check through Compass or WSOB, because anybody can look at a company's history and everything now, you will be shown as you're a member of the WCV Excellence Program. So that gives you brand bragging rights. And the cool thing is, if you actually have an online management system and controls and upload all the information within your system, and then you're part of the Excellence Program, it'd be a great, tremendous talking point to talk to your potential owners or contracts that you want to get and say, listen, we have an up-to-date management system. We have an online management system. We can see all the different dates and expiries for all different employees. We're in compliance and we're part of the Excellence Program. That's a really nice way to try to secure more business and to retain certain business, because as we know, there is a lot of companies that you're trying to work with that are requiring this information. Let me see your job hazard analysis. Let me see your safer practices and procedures before you actually can bid. This is going to allow you to do that, and we can do that for you. Okay, so that's a very high level of what we can do.
Thank you very much, John, and thank you, Sobi, for the detailed discussion and attention to some of the key aspects that business owners need to know to be in compliance and stay in compliance. So, in fact, we are well ahead of schedule. It was 11:30, so until when we have the webinar. However, we can be here for another 5 minutes to take some questions. If you have any questions that you want to ask, here's an ISO lead auditor with you and a very experienced person from the business field. So if you have any questions related to some of the key challenges you're facing with occupational health and safety and managing your program, please feel free to ask us about those questions. And while we wait for the questions, maybe Sobi, some of the people in the audience might actually be interested in, because the confusion that people have, right? If you want to go in for core or should I go in for ISO, what could be something good, especially if I'm a construction business, what could be the better route? So while we wait for questions, maybe you can throw a bit of light and guide the people on the call.
Thank you so much, Eddie, for that. And as John was talking about it, so the way how Ministry and WSIB have kind of created the roadmap for Ontario health and safety for workplaces, start from excellence and it leads to accreditation. So excellence is your starting point. So my advice to all of our clients and participants of seminars is start with an SME program. If you don't have the requirement or a need for a core, once you get your SME program, then you could go towards core. If you're in the construction industry, I highly encourage each and every one of you to maybe start with the Core 2020 program, because that defines a program. And the way how Core 2020 is, you may be a subcontractors. Looking at the registration list, majority of you fall under subcontractors. You will be working for a GC. And GCs are going to recommend and demand their subs to be core certified. The reason why is then you have a safety management system that meets the standard. But once you have Core 2020 or ISO 45001, if you are providing services across the province, then seek for ISO 45001. If you're in construction, look for Core 2020. If not, ISO 45001. If you think those two are too much and you are right at the beginning stage, then go through the SME solution with Safety Excellence. You do need to have a framework and a structure to get started, and these will give you that framework and the structure. Once you have Core 2020 or ISO 45001, then you could apply for becoming the first employer in Ontario. So Excellence will give you some rebate for over 5 years, building the program little by little, or you could while you're in the core program, you could get the first year rebate, and then while you're in transition, you could get some more. And then you apply for Ontario Safest Employer Accreditation Program. To be Ontario Safest Employer, you need to ensure that you don't have any fatalities that happen within your organization. If there's any fatalities, you are immediately disqualified from the program. Once they accept you, so you have to be either Core 2020 or ISO certified, and they look at your certifications and they look at your audit reports, and they will give you a rebate, which is a much higher rebate than the Safety Excellence Program over the course of next 3 years. So you get a little bit more in the first year, then second year and third year. There's 3 tiers to it. And Ministry of MLTSD, Ministry of Labor and Skills Training and Development Branch, and WSIB have allocated $3 billion towards this program. They are pretty much looking for all the employers to take advantage of these. These are the only way for you to get some rebate, as well as deemed as a safe employer in Ontario. It is a prestige, and once you have a Core 2020 or ISO 45001 standard, you can easily prove due diligence. If not, at least start off with the SME model that John was talking about, which will give you some structure. So that would be my advice to all of you who are present today.
So can I add then, I would like your thoughts on this, and as you know, element 4 of Core 2020, alluding to your point about most of the audience being subcontractors. Now, a Core 2020 requires GCs to have a procurement and contractor management module in itself. It's an element in itself. It's a program. So subcontractors are now going to need to have their own programs, and they can't pass off the GC's program as theirs like it was earlier, right?
Exactly.
So
they need to have their own program, and they do need to do hazard assessments daily based on the exposures of what work they would be performing. And those copies do need to be given to the GCs. So these are new changes that is taking place as of the Core 2020 transition. Majority of the GCs, I would say 99% of them just started this process. And next year you will see a lot more GCs who are co-certified will be going into the transition plan, and they will pretty much asking all their subcontractors to give a detailed health and safety program record, as well as to provide daily hazard assessments for the days that they are working on the site.
Thank you. John, you wanted to say something?
Well, the only thing I want to say is that I will personally send an email to each one who is attending this seminar, and I'll give you my information. And if you're interested, I'm going to say, if you're interested, just respond back saying interested to see a demonstration of the online management systems that understand an SME model. Or if you're a company that's, you know what, because core, if tests take around 16, 18 months from beginning to end to achieve. And so if you're thinking of that, I will send you guys an email. If you're interested, then we can kind of figure out some virtual dates in the new year or end of December, whatever is good, to be able to walk you through, so you have at least understanding of what your options are. And I have great stories to share with a lot of contractors that are small businesses that really are thriving well, that did this whole core accreditation process. And it's easy when you create a program that's very easy to sustain. And I want to get in great details right now, but you don't know what you don't know. And that's all I can say. So I will personally send an email to everybody. If you're interested, then respond back, and then we can figure out some dates in the new year. No obligation.
Thank you very much, John. It's 11:15. So I guess if there's no questions, this webinar is being recorded, as all of you know, and the recording will be shared not just with the attendees, but with the entire BCA membership through the marketing network of the BCA. Thank you very much for attending this webinar today. Once again, thank you, Allison. Thank you, Bryony, for your wonderful support. And thank you all your wonderful people for attending. It's so early in the morning.